If you're letting the number on the scale control your mood, your motivation, and especially your self-worth, you need to hear this. Give me the next 10 minutes and I will change the way you think about that number on the scale for the rest of your life. Because ultimately, you deserve to live a life free from the burden of guilt, shame, anxiety about what your number is on the scale. There once was a time in my life when I truly cared so much about that number. I wanted to be the skinniest, thinnest, smallest version of myself. The goal was to make that number as small as possible. Now, I don't care at all. I mean, okay, I do a little bit because let's be honest, it's hard to erase that completely from your life, especially when you're brought up in this society where you're supposed to be thin or idolize thinness or skinniness. What if I told you that I weigh the same now as I did back in 2020? And I'm okay with that because truly, as the years go by, I can see just how differently that 163 average looks on my body. This picture shows 5 years of growth and change and progress, and you can definitely see the physique changes, even though it's the same number on the scale. Hello, glutes. And quads and legs. Well, to be honest, the whole body. I think there's more growth and definition. You can see it in my shoulders for sure. I think that's probably the craziest thing to me about my physique changes over the last year especially is the insane shoulder growth that I've had. Like if I thought my body looked good 5 years ago, girl, look at you now. So what does this mean? Like, does that number on the scale matter? The same can hold true for a lot of my clients. And I see this a lot with individuals when they come to me, we start working on their weight loss goal, but we see body recomposition happening first. When we're giving your body the fuel that it needs and the workouts that it wants in order to shape itself, we can see these results. This client here, you can see that her body looks different, more in shape, a little bit tighter, more toned. Guess what? Her weight is the same. Same with this client here. Same exact situation. Body recomposition. Weight stayed the same. Body looks so different. Snatched, tighter, toned, more muscle. All the things that we want to see when we're putting in the work. Same with this client here. We have another situation where the number on the scale stayed the same and her body looks different. So why am I showing you these? We have been conditioned to believe that the number on the scale equals progress, but it doesn't tell the whole truth. There might be a lot of other variables that are going on underneath the surface that are causing the number to show up a certain way. So let's talk about why that number goes up and down, because I know those fluctuations can mess with your head if you don't understand them. Now here's the truth. You cannot physically gain 3 pounds in one day. In order to do that, you would need to eat like 10,000 extra calories over what your body is already burning in a day, and that is just not happening. So when that number goes up 1 to 3 pounds on the day today, you can rest assured it's not fat gain. There's probably something else going on. Now it could be one of a few variables, and we're gonna walk through those. First things first, let's talk about your sodium intake. If you consume more salt in a day than normal, what is normal for you, you're probably gonna see an increase in the scale the next day because your body is holding on to water. It's kind of the same as if you would step on the scale holding a bottle of water, right? And the opposite is true. If you eat less sodium in a day relative to what you're used to, you could probably see a little dip in the scale. In that same category, I would put in carbs. If you eat more carbs than normal relative to what you're used to, if you have less carbs than normal relative to what you're used to, you could see a little spike or a little dip in the number on the scale. And let's remember, that doesn't mean fat gain, it's just water retention. Your body is sucking up that water and holding on to it. In that same realm, we could talk about your digestion and meal timing, right? If you are a little backed up, constipated, haven't had a bowel movement, you're likely gonna see a little bit of a higher number on the scale. Kind of the same with meal timing. If you eat a meal later in the day or weigh in earlier in the day, you're probably going to see a little bit of an uptick in the scale just because it's not a variable that you're controlling for when it comes to weighing in. What we really want to watch out for is trends over time. So this graph here is a client from June, and you can see the data so clearly shows a little spike and then a dip. If you pay attention to the trend line, you see it's steadily going down the way that you would want it to for a weight loss experience. But I think this graph just goes to show that your weight is not going to be the same every day. There's always going to be a little bit of variance. Another great example of that is this client of mine from May. This trend line might not be as steep as the other one, but we're still seeing weight loss over time. Another trend line is a little bit more steady. So we're averaging around the same weight here. It doesn't mean that we're not making progress. These are the reasons why I want you to pay attention to other variables so that you don't get discouraged when you're not seeing things move the way that you're hoping they would. Now, other variables can come into play here as well, such as your hormones. Depending on where you're at in your cycle, specifically in the luteal phase and right before your period, you could see anywhere from 2 to 6, 7, 10 pounds of a difference on the scale. And we know that when that uterus starts to shed, you'll be feeling a little bit better about yourself and that number on the scale. So do keep that one in mind. Another variable to consider is going to be your stress levels and your sleep. Stress, cortisol, that hormone that you're probably familiar with, or maybe not at all, isn't always a bad thing. When you're stressed, your body's holding on to water. And it can also increase your appetite, specifically if you're not sleeping well too. You're gonna see an increase in appetite. You might have an increase in calories, increase in carbs, increase in sodium. All of those things can cause the number to be elevated. It doesn't necessarily equal fat gain. Of course, we can't not talk about exercise here. We know that if you've had a hard, intense workout, you're likely gonna see a little bit of spike in the scale. Muscle inflammation, swelling, your body is resting, trying to repair, holding on to water. You can see an increase from anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. And if you have a rest day, you're gonna see that number come right back down. So taking this all into consideration, looking at these graphs, what does all this mean? The number on the scale as a day-to-day measure of progress might not always be the best thing for you. And what I want to encourage you to do if you're interested in using the scale to measure your progress is to compare month to month. That's why I always keep it in an Excel sheet for my clients, and I make them that pretty graph so that you can see where the trend line is and start to learn what your body's patterns are. That is going to be the most valuable thing you can gain out of tracking your weight, if anything. At the end of the day, don't freak out about one weigh-in. We need to look at the average, not one single point in time, and that is how you'll know whether or not you're making the progress you want and keep on moving forward. There are, of course, some better ways to measure progress if you're not interested in using the scale. One, of course, is progress pictures, which I think those speak for themselves. Start now. That way, your future self will thank you when you can see how much progress you've made. Next up, I would add in some circumference measurements. I do have my clients take these once a month or once a quarter just to kind of see where we're at. And this is more just so we can see if your waist is dropping inches while that number on the scale still continues to stay the same. Another great one kind of goes along with this is how your clothing fits. If your jeans are suddenly looser, if you need to buy new bras because the band is too loose, not tight enough, all of that is going to be an indicator that we're moving in the right direction, scale aside. Some other non-scale victories that we want to pay attention to when it comes to measuring progress are going to be your confidence, your energy, your mood, how you're feeling, how you're sleeping through the night, and of course, your progress in the gym. This is a huge one to pay attention to. Are you able to do push-ups now? Did you get your first chin-up? Are you lifting more weight than you did a month ago? Are you feeling really good and strong in your workouts? Are you recovering well? All of these signs point to progress being made that have nothing to do with the number on the scale. This is why it's important to track your workouts. I also use an Excel sheet for my clients with this so that we can see how much progress you've made in each lift over time. I hope you're starting to see that there are more ways that you can track your progress. The scale is just a tool. It provides you data, and you shouldn't judge yourself based off of it. You are not a number. You're a human making progress in ways that a scale could never measure. The confidence, the empowerment, the strength that you build over time will go far beyond what the number on the scale ever could. So the next time the scale spikes, remember, it's not a failure, it's just a fluctuation. Think about these variables, think about what might be going on in your life, what stressors, if you're sleeping, check the weigh-in time. It doesn't mean you're not making progress. It just means you're a human with human things going on underneath the surface. Now, if you found this at all freeing, be sure to hit subscribe so we can keep building a healthier mindset around fitness together. And until next time, remember to be so dramatic about your health and wellness because strong is sexy and you are too.